All right, folks, so now that we have zeroed the physical console and we have uploaded our show file and loaded it and made connection with X32Edit if needed, I'm going to open up TheaterMix here, and we will start by building a brand new TheaterMix file. So once you load a new TheaterMix file, you may be brought up with this menu here, the Select Console. The board that we're working on in this example and in your class is the X32 Compact. So let's select that and press Next. It by default then opens what's known as the Show Setup window. The Show Setup window is basically telling TheaterMix which channels am I allowed to control for various facets in terms of assigning to DCAs, assigning profiles, assigning effects on and offs, and various capacities. For our example, we are actually going to only use the first 7 channels. I'm going to turn everything else off. So you see how I've only selected the first 7 channels. I am then going to populate each one with the character name, Evelyn. Great, so now that I have all of the 7 character names in there, that's looking pretty good. We will still, for our example, still control the first 8 DCAs. But we are going to do an extra step here. I will cover this further in the profiles video, but let's start by I'm going to select each character and add a profile to it. And I'm going to say Evelyn Def, short for default. And I'm going to check, check, check. Repeat that process for all characters. Great, so with all of that complete, we will now look at the Effects and Levels tab. We do want to be able to control effects 1, 2, 3, 4 onputs for each channel. What that means is, say we needed to control the effects 1, 2, 3, 4 on for the channel Evelyn, we could, with TheaterMix, turn these on and off in each TheaterMix scene. Next, let's enable store level offsets and force all faders to 0 in line check cues. Great. The Scenes and Snippets tab, let's be able to recall console snippets. I will leave scenes recalling board scenes in your hands. I don't recommend it at this point. QLab, you can enable that if you had QLab running on the same computer. And then console is where we can change our profile again. So everything looks good. That's great. So we've kind of set up this file in a baseline fashion. The next thing we want to do is actually connect TheaterMix to the console. So we're actually going to go to Console Setup. And if I'm on the same network, I should see my board. Of note, you will see the mixer icon at the top of TheaterMix. When it's not connected, it is gray. When I select this and press apply and connect, this should turn green. Also, I may want to, once I've found the board that I'm working on, select the automatically connect to this console next time I open the show file, and it will look for that IP address of that board and connect automatically. So we're going to press apply and go through with this. We are now connected. You can see I have connection to the mixer. Because I've enabled other features, we also have the record level offsets and clone offsets. Great, so we are ready to truck with this. Over here on my board, I have my inputs 1 through 8, which has all of my characters. I'm on that layer. It has actually taken the scribble strip names from the show setup. So the names that you put for the characters here are actually what will overwrite what you had previously. On the right-hand side, I have my DCA layer. So my DCAs, nothing is assigned to DCAs at the moment. Okay, let's build our first TheaterMix cue, and I'm going to call this maybe example scene 1 part 1, because we may have multiple scenes here in our example. Let's, with our unlocked, let's put Evelyn on DCA 1. Now, this will make sense later when I do this, but I'm actually, because I made those profiles, Evelyn default, I'm going to actually assign Evelyn default. And I can give this its own clear name here, just to show you what I mean. If I press OK alone, it actually says Evelyn default. I could come in, if I so choose, and just change the DCA name. Okay, so we are not in a state of this yet, but let's build another queue. Let's create another blank queue, and we'll call this example scene 1 part 2. And maybe here I will put bet. And here I will put Charlie. Okay. What we are going to do is actually get the board to do stuff. So while you're watching on both the input side and the DCA layer side, pay attention as I actually go into the queue. So I'm going to just first lock, and then I'm going to go into the line check. And you'll notice that it actually mutes all my inputs, forces them to unity. None of the DCAs are mapped at this point. You can tell because these scribble strips are darkened out. Now, as I advance to this next queue, you can see that it has unmuted the input for Evelyn. Why? Because Evelyn is the first DCA here. It has kept all the other inputs muted. On the DCA layer of your board, it is only giving you Evelyn. So this is where you are actually controlling Evelyn's mic. As I go to scene 2, we do not have Evelyn on DCA 1, but we have Bet and Charlie on DCA 3. So here you can see, as soon as I launch this theater mix scene, it has muted Evelyn, unmuted Bet and Charlie. The DCA that was previously Evelyn is gone. Keep in mind their input is muted, so that's gone, and we now have control of Evelyn and Charlie. So having things mapped to DCAs and tracking it through almost does your auto mutes. You still have the best of both worlds where you're muting the mic where they don't need to be, but you also have full control of them over a DCA. What this could allow you to do is say if we were in the first scene with Evelyn up and we need to go with the next scene, I could be cheating up the mics and go with the second scene and then get rid of Evelyn's mic. So there is some operational benefit to this. Let's look at another example where we have all of these players on their own DCAs. So first I'm going to unlock. I can create a new queue. Let's call this example 1 part 3. And I will go through and map all of my 7 players one-to-one to DCAs. Great, so I have a whole new scene here. I'm going to just lock and get into a state of it. And here you can see it has unmuted all 7 inputs because they're all applied, and then they are mapped to their specific DCAs. Okay, now let's go a little further with this. We're going to look at the effects send. So by default, all effects in this file that I set up are going to number 1. We could change this if we didn't want the default to go to number 1. If I go to console setup, advanced, effects buses, we can change this if we go to show setup, effects and levels, and set our default effects to none. Now we see no number in the effects column associated with each DCA. Just to clarify this, we have DCA 1 followed by its effects column. We have DCA 2 followed by its effects column, and so on and so on and so on. While we're looking at Evelyn here, maybe on the mixer I've actually dialed in, maybe it's like a -10 to these first two effects. Do note that none of them are on at the moment. The actual send into that effect is off. I'm going to keep everyone dry on this, so no effect send. I'm going to actually clone this scene. I'm going to unlock, select the scene, clone it, make a copy of it below. I will clone and make a third one. Great. So we are still in a state of 3, but we have 4 and 5, which are of no change between these two. In scene 4, if I were to take Evelyn and say, I want you to go to effects 1, watch what happens as I launch through this. So I'm in a state of theater mix scene 3, and as I progress to 4, watch what happens with the on-off to effects 1. We can see it automates on. It is allowed to go to that effect. And if I go to scene 5, there will be no effect, so this will turn off. It'll make sure all 4 of these are turned off, and go. So you can see that each player in any scene that you've made, can go to one of the 4 effects. If you want your player to go to more than one effect, you actually have to double-click on their profile and change the effect to multiple here. Here I could send to both the short and the long verb. When you have multiple, you will see a little star in here. So let's lock back. We'll go to Q3. Q4, go. Here you can see that it is turned on, enabled the send into the effect for your short verb and long verb. And then as I launch scene 5 in theater mix, there will be no effect, so all 4 will be turned off. Scene 5, go.